Your Eminences, Reverend Fathers, dear professors, ladies and gentlemen,
Σεβασμιότατοι, αγαπητοί πατέρες, κυρίες και κύριοι, είναι χαρά μου να σας καλωσορίζω σε αυτό το διεθνές συνέδριο που οργανώνει
with WWF Greece on the critical topic, the good practices of the Orthodox churches addressing the climate crisis in view of COP26. Our main goal today is to provide an overview of certain good practices taking place in various Orthodox churches worldwide, but also to refer to certain problems and challenges so as to further contribute to the overall discussion and particularly increase the awareness of the faithful on climate crisis. This is quite important to the extent that Orthodoxy still plays an important spiritual and cultural role, especially in the traditional Orthodox societies. Before giving the floor to Theodota Nansou, Head of Policy of WWF Greece, for her greeting, please take note of the following two things. First, the present conference is being recorded, and B, in order to follow the translation from Greek to English and vice versa, please use the relative interpretation button from the menu bar of Zoom platform in front of you. As we have a very tight program, we likely won't take comments or questions, but we plan to give you all the opportunity to interact and exchange through a platform or group email correspondence. So, Theodota, the floor is yours for your greetings.
Thank you, Nikos. It is indeed a great honor to be with you, with such great speakers who will give us, who will enlighten us today about the praxis, the environmental praxis of the Orthodox Church. We have been reading all the important messages by heads of Orthodox churches and of course by His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew, but how does this translate into actual acts and projects and everyday life? This is something that many people do not know. This is what the aim of this conference is today, and it is up to you to enlighten us about how in everyday life Orthodox communities across the globe, but especially focusing in the Balkans, address the existential, let's say, crisis of climate change. Climate change changes the world as we know it. This is a fact. Science says, but science speaks to the minds of people, and churches, the Orthodox Church speaks to the hearts of people. So it is up to us all together for our planet. This is the message of the COP26, the 26th Council of Parties dealing with climate change, which is happening in Glasgow in a few days. It is beginning in a few days, together for our planet. And the role of the church, all churches, all Orthodox churches, is crucial in changing attitudes and making us give the best of humanity to this planet. So the floor is yours, dear speakers, and we're really eager to hear about the best practices of Orthodox communities across the globe. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Theodota. And now let's turn directly to our first greeting video message by His Excellency, the Vice President for promoting our European way of life, Mr. Margaritis Chinas from the European Commission.
Σεβασμιότατε, αγαπητέ Πρόεδρε, φίλες και φίλοι. Με μεγάλη χαρά αποδέχθηκα την πρόσκληση να χαιρετήσω το Διεθνές Συνέδριό σας για το κομβικής σημασίας θέμα της κλιματικής αλλαγής που διοργανώνει η Ακαδημία Θεολογικών Σπουδών Βόλου σε συνεργασία με το γραφείο WWF Ελλάδα. Το φετινό καλοκαίρι άφησε επώδυνα το αποτύπωμά του στη συλλογική μας μνήμη ως ένα από τα πιο καταστροφικά των τελευταίων ετών στην Ευρώπη. Μετά τις φωνικές πλημμύρες στη Βόρεια και Κεντρική Ευρώπη, οι πρωτόγνωρα υψηλές θερμοκρασίες και οι εκτεταμένες δασικές πυρκαγιές στην Ελλάδα αλλά και σε άλλες χώρες της νοτιοανατολικής Μεσογείου δοκίμασαν τις αντοχές της κοινωνίας, έφεραν τους εθνικούς μηχανισμούς πολιτικής προστασίας στα όρια τους, αλλά την ίδια στιγμή ανέδειξαν και την αξία και την ισχύ της αλληλεγγύης μεταξύ όλων των κρατών μελών της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Ένα κεντρικό, καταλυτικό δίδαγμα που προκύπτει αβίαστα από αυτά τα ακραία φαινόμενα είναι πως η κλιματική αλλαγή είναι πια πραγματικότητα και είναι εδώ. Αυτό άλλωστε επιβεβαίωσε για άλλη μια φορά πρόσφατη έκθεση της Διακυβερνητικής Επιτροπής για την Κλιματική Αλλαγή του ΟΗΕ, η οποία προειδοποιεί πως η θερμοκρασία μπορεί να ανέβει ως και 1,5 βαθμούς Κελσίου το 2040, με εύλογες καταστροφικές συνέπειες για τη ζωή σε όλο τον πλανήτη. Οι φωνές για την ανάληψη δράσης άμεσα ηχούν ως δραματικό κάλεσμα αφύπνισης. Χρειαζόμαστε άμεσες και γρήγορες κινήσεις για να μειώσουμε τις εκπομπές ρήπων. Εμείς εδώ στην Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή έχουμε ήδη εκπονήσει ένα ολοκληρωμένο και πολυδιάστατο σχέδιο, ώστε να πετύχουμε αυτό που μέχρι πριν από λίγα χρόνια φάνταζε ακατόρθωτο. Να καταστήσουμε την Ευρώπη μας την πρώτη κλιματικά ουδέτερη ήπειρο στον κόσμο μέχρι το 2050. 9 στους 10 Ευρωπαίους το ζητούν επιτακτικά, σύμφωνα με τις μετρήσεις του τελευταίου Ευρωβαρόμετρου. Και για να φτάσουμε εκεί θα απαιτηθούν προσπάθειες. Σοβαρές προσπάθειες να αλλάξουμε τον τρόπο που ζούμε, τον τρόπο που καταναλώνουμε, τον τρόπο που αντιμετωπίζουμε τους φυσικούς πόρους που μας περιβάλλουν. Ας μην γελιόμαστε. Για να αλλάξουμε τον κόσμο πρέπει να αλλάξουμε πρώτα εμείς οι ίδιοι. Ένα ακόμη βασικό δίδαγμα είναι πως ορθά η Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή πρώτα θέσπισε και μετά ενίσχυσε το πρόγραμμα RescEU στο πλαίσιο των διαπραγματεύσεων για τον προϋπολογισμό της Ένωσης για τα επόμενα 7 χρόνια. Πρόκειται για έναν ισχυρό μηχανισμό ευρωπαϊκής πολιτικής προστασίας που καθίσταται πλέον κρίσιμος για την ασφάλεια του τρόπου ζωής μας, είτε αφορά σε πυροσβεστικά αεροσκάφη, είτε σε ιατροφαρμακευτικό εξοπλισμό, είτε σε άλλα μέσα αντιμετώπισης κρίσεων και καταστροφών. Ειδικά το φετινό δύσκολο καλοκαίρι, με τις δραματικές πυρκαγιές και φυσικές καταστροφές, μας θυμίζει, αν χρειαζότανε, το πόσο επίκαιροι και πόσο επίγοντες είναι αυτοί οι πολιτικοί στόχοι. Φίλες και φίλοι, η Ευρώπη πρέπει να πρασινίσει και η πράσινη επανάσταση θα ξεκινήσει από τον Νότο, με έμπρακτη και άμεση ευρωπαϊκή αρρωγή. Ήδη με του σχεδίου Ελλάδα 2.0, το Ταμείο Ανάκαμψης χρηματοδοτεί καθαρές ενεργειακές λύσεις. Τώρα είναι η ώρα της δράσης, της άμεσης και ουσιαστικής δράσης. Δεν μπορούμε να προχωρήσουμε με ημίμετρα. Η Ευρώπη δείχνει το δρόμο με πράξεις και ρυθμιστικές δεσμεύσεις. Και βρισκόμαστε σε ένα κρίσιμο σταυροδρόμι εν ώψη και της Διεθνούς Διάσκεψης των Ηνωμένων Εθνών για την Κλιματική Αλλαγή που θα πραγματοποιηθεί σε λίγες μέρες στη Γλασκόβη από την 1η ως τις 12 Νοεμβρίου. Δεν υπάρχει πλέον χρόνος για χάσιμο. Τώρα πρέπει να αλλάξουμε πορεία. Διαφορετικά, κινδυνεύουμε να αφήσουμε τις επόμενες γενιές με έναν πλανήτη αποδεκατισμένο και ακατάλληλο για να στηρίξει την οικονομική και κοινωνική μας ευημερία. Σε αυτή την κοινή προσπάθεια δεν μπορεί και δεν πρέπει να λείψει κανείς. Με την επιρροή, το κύρος και την αξιοπιστία τους, οι θρησκευτικοί ηγέτες και οι θρησκευτικές οργανώσεις έχουν το δικό τους ξεχωριστό και μοναδικό ρόλο για να συμβάλλουν στην επιτυχία της πράσινης μετάβασης και να εξασφαλίσουν ένα καλύτερο μέλλον για τους Ευρωπαίους. Σας ευχαριστώ για την προσοχή σας και εύχομαι κάθε επιτυχία στις εργασίες του συνεδρίου σας.
Let's now turn to our second message by His Beatitude, the Archbishop of Athens and all Greece, Hieronymus II. I will read the message. Χαιρετίζω την έναρξη των εργασιών του παρόντος Διεθνούς Συνεδρίου το οποίο διοργανώνεται από την Ακαδημία Θελαϊκών Σπουδών Βόλου, Ερευνητικό Κέντρο.
I welcome the opening of the works of this international conference organized by the Academy of Theological Studies of Volos in cooperation with WWF in view of the Global Summit COP26. The ecological problem, which has come up over the last decades due to the climate crisis and change, is without doubt the acutest problem for humanity. The impact of climate change becomes painfully understood by human societies. They will bring about increasing difficulties in the life of people in interstate relationships, economy, and health. Nature is not enough to satisfy unhidden desires for power, wealth, luxury for all people equally. And this is where the deep spiritual dimension of the problem lies. Awareness raising is the first objective. May the need to stop the rise of temperature to only 1.5 degrees by 2050 a common target for everybody. Let's understand that the way to climate neutrality is an imminent challenge, but also an opportunity for a better future. The people of faith understand the spiritual dimension of the problem, and they can, through their ecclesiastic life, participate in this joint effort. The participation of our church in joint efforts with other bodies and organizations in an organized manner is at the core of our activities. We have to contribute so that the word refines the beauty given to it by our Creator. I congratulate the organizers, and may our Lord Jesus Christ bless the works of this conference. The Archbishop of Greece and of Athens and all Greece, Hieronymus.
By His Eminence, the Metropolitan of Dimitrias Dalmiros Ignatius, who is also the president of the board of the Volos Academy for Theological Studies.
Η κλιματική αλλαγή θεωρείται σήμερα ως το
Climate
πιο...
change is today the most important problem of humanity. It is a reality that puts in danger our own cities and villages here in Greece. It is worth mentioning the disastrous wildfires in Greece last August. Moreover, we are used to, and now it is not an exception, not only to listen, but also to experience extreme weather phenomena, such as long periods of very high temperatures, storms, such as the storm Balos a few days ago, forest wildfires, floods. Those situations have been unknown a few decades ago. Those situations create very serious problems, not only at the local environment, but also to the climate and the economy. Which was the reaction, or what can the Orthodox Church do against that reality? And the leadership of the Greek Patriarchate, of His Holiness, All Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Barcelona, the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople has organized a lot of conferences from Patmos in 1995 to the Black Sea to 1997, during 1999, here at Attica in 2018, but also initiatives, for example, establishing the 1st of September as Day of Praying for the Environment, wanting to showcase not only the spiritual, but also the religious aspects of this ecological crisis, and at the same time, focusing on the need for a spiritual transformation of the humanity in order to be able to tackle those negative developments. So starting from this rich tradition, in my opinion, as Orthodox Christians, we need to cultivate and to promote a new ethos, if you wish, a new way of being, different from the dominant way of life, that has as a priority consumption and our ego before social solidarity and justice, the responsibility to the others, and the respect to the creation. What we need is not just a new political program that will try to find the balance between the goals that need to be succeeded and the risks that need to be mitigated, but a new ethos that will take into consideration the need of people to listen to their hearts, trying to find the real meaning for the whole world. So, inspired from this alternative ethos, each and one of us, not only the pastors of the people, but also each Christian, to take action to the direction of the recycling of natural resources, the mitigation of our waste, the use of clean and non-toxic material in food, and of course, the use of the renewable energy sources in fuel. For example, wind turbines, renewable energy sources, all those could contribute into creating a green environment, which would, of course, have effects to the regional climates. A green church, which would consist from a lot of green parishes. This term might be a little bit weird for you now, but this is the only way in order to transform our world right now. Therefore, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this digital conference organized by the Volos Academy of Theological Studies and WWF Greece, which wants to showcase all those good practices that could become the starting point from the transformation and the safety of the world in which we live. So I would like to wish you the best for your works, and I'm looking forward to the results in order to become reality.
We continue now with the main menu of our online conference. We will start with a session dedicated to Greece, to the good practice of the Orthodox churches in Greece. And the first speaker will be Reverend Dr. Afilochios Miltos, who is the priest in charge at the Evangelistria Parish Church, Nea Ionia Volos. This is the pilot parish of the project Green Parish and parallel activities that has been organized by the Volos Academy in cooperation with WWF Greece. The title of his presentation is Green Parish, A Journey Starts.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. Your Eminence, respected fathers, ladies and gentlemen. As priest in charge of Evangelistria Parish, New Ionia Volos, the pilot parish joined WWF Greece Volos Academy Research Program, Green Parish and parallel activities, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to present to you our parish and some of its activities in the framework of this program. I aim to do three things. First, offer a brief outline of the history of our parish. Second, share with you some of the parish activities either currently taking place or programmed to do so within the framework of the research program. Finally, I wish to stress the significance of this Green Parish initiative, not only for the Church in Greece, but beyond her borders, since our vision, the vision of this program, is to create a network of green parishes with good, environmentally friendly practices, not only within Greece, but throughout the region of the Balkans. Following the Asia Minor catastrophe and the burning of Smyrna in September 1922, the Treaty of Lausanne of July 1923 provided that for an official and compulsory green Turkish exchange of populations. Ionia, the Asia Minor homeland of Hellenism of more than 2,000 years, was lost, resulting in an influx of more than 1 million refugees into mainland Greece. The following year, 1924, Greek refugees began to be settled immediately to the north of the city of Volos, here in Greece. This settlement in time became known as Nea or New Ionia in memory of the Ionia province of Asia Minor. 2 years later, 1926, Little Evangelistria, our first humble parish church, was built to serve the worship needs of this refugee community. By the early 1930s, the need for a larger church building was recognized, drawn up. However, due to the outbreak of the Second World War and the occupation of Greece by Axis forces, construction was postponed. Eventually, in 1949, the foundation stone of the new church was laid. 10 years later, in 1959, worship services began at the impressively large new Evangelistria Parish Church, situated in the central square of the New Ionia municipality. Building this church has truly been a Herculean community effort, with both men and women parishioners voluntarily helping out as builders, and with poor settlers generously offering not only cash, but prized heirlooms, their most precious valuables, to facilitate construction. Finally, in 1966, the new Church of Evangelistria was formally dedicated to the Annunciation of the Mother of God. Since then, our parish has a rich history, not only in its pastoral work, but also in other domains such as philanthropic activities, like Spiti Galinis, a charity foundation which since 1980 offers every day more than 100 meals to our parishioners in need. The program Green Parish was inaugurated in June 2021, fruit, as mentioned, of the cooperation between the Volos Academy of Theological Studies and WWF Greece. Our parish was selected by our Bishop, Metropolitan Ignatius of Dimitrias, to participate in this initiative, inspired by representatives of the two organizations, Nikos Asproudis and Theodota Nanchou, respectively. From the beginning, I considered this program to be a creative challenge for our parish, and was wondering how Green Parish could possibly remain not just an attractive title, but a reality giving real, tangible results. The response to my wonders didn't wait. In early September of this year, an informal ad hoc Green Parish committee was set up at Evangelistria, consisting of myself and 5 other parishioners, all of whom were already pressing me to begin such a venture. Thus, it was unnecessary to search for volunteers, since these people had already taken the initiative and volunteered themselves. Personally, I was greatly encouraged. This eventuality reassured me that the grace of God and His Holy Mother, the Theotokos, was with us. To date, the Green Parish Committee has had 2 monthly meetings and plans to meet at least once per month over the coming 6 months. As a result, a number of Green Parish activities have already started up, while others are planned. Some of these are the following: energy solutions friendly to the environment. We are studying how we can install solar panels in order to use, as far as possible, green energy, and thus significantly lower our carbon footprint, which we believe is vital. In this light, if you will pardon the pun, we have already switched to LED electric bulbs. Secondly, monthly visiting speakers. The first speaker this month was Archimandrite Antipas Nikitaras, formerly abbot of the Holy Monastery of St. John the Theologian on Patmos Island. His subject was the Saint of Environment, Saint Amphilochios of Patmos. Father Antipas has brought with him the blessing of a holy relic of Saint Amphilochios, this new saint of our Orthodox Church, which has remained in the parish from October 16th until today. And so, once a month is programmed that a specialist in a domain linking ecology issues and theology or spirituality will give a talk in our parish. Integrated environmental education within parish Sunday school teaching and youth activities. All of our youth teachers are on board with the Green Parish initiative and plan to incorporate green thinking and good practices in their teaching, which begins this month. Furthermore, in the framework of our youth activities, we will organize various events. The visit of a writer for children on environmental values education to speak to our youth. Environmental education visit our youth to a local organic farm to learn hands-on how organic healthy food is grown, activities in common with the schools of our parish, etc. Parish visit to eco-friendly places. For example, we are planning a visit to St. John the Baptist Orthodox Nunnery of our diocese, situated within our diocese and Anatoli Agias. There, the nuns will demonstrate to our parishioners how they are involved in organic farming. They also run an on-site shop selling their organic grown products. Recycling, upcycling, and reusing. Our committee has produced a guide to good recycling practice, making clear how and what we can recycle. We are also investigating so-called creative upcycling. We plan to have a local artist demonstrate how everyday household plastic waste, much of which does not in reality get recycled by the municipal authorities, can be reused. Also, contact has been made with a company providing in situ reward return recycling centers, which can be set up in the church courtyard, as seen, for example, outside some supermarkets. Users of the recycle center receive cash tokens for plastic, glass, and aluminum empties that they recycle. Other ideas is Parish Green Library. At Evangelistria, we are gradually building up a library of books related to the environment and the climate crisis. Members of our committee have donated from their personal libraries to this initiative. It is planned eventually to make this library available to local schools as well to our parishioners. And another idea also planned is cookery workshops. In view of the upcoming Nativity Fast, we plan to run at the parish a limited numbers workshop where parishioners can learn how to cook recipes from locally grown fresh organic ingredients. St. Paul, reading to the church at Rome, urges believers, I cite, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Renewing the mind is actually the same in the Greek language as repentance, since the Greek word metania literally means to radically change one's mind. The practical implications of green theology are challenging indeed. We are not accustomed here in the Balkans to think green, to care for our environment. However, we can learn to do so if we humble ourselves and listen, for example, to our Greek ecumenical patriarch, Bartholomew, who for more than 3 decades has been calling us to embrace green theology in practice by transforming our daily habits so that we began to care for our planet, becoming good stewards of creation instead of contributing to its destruction through wasteful and mindless consumerism. For our parish, this is certainly a challenging time. In a way, we are being called by God's Holy Spirit to repent once more, this time not of personal sins committed, but of our collective indifference, even hostility to His good and perfect creation. The challenge is a very practical one. There is a saying, old habits die hard, but die they must. Otherwise, we are not being serious in our declarations about going green. Finally, I would like to stress that these are very early days, our very early days. We are just at the beginning of a journey. We have only just begun to think and to act green. We have a long road ahead of us. Nevertheless, we have started on the journey, a journey that we are determined to continue. Our hope is that this Green Parish initiative here in New Ionia, Volos, Greece, will grow into a network of green parishes which help each other, not just in our diocese, and not just in this country, but throughout the Balkans. The presupposition, however, is the need constantly to humble ourselves, to continuously repent of all the harm we have done to our planet. There must also be a willingness to learn from others, even from those outside of our denomination, outside of our faith, and from those of no declared faith at all, so that together we can travel this road towards more sustainable living. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Father Afillochios, for your presentation. And now we go directly to the second speaker of this session, who is Dr. Antonis Kalogerakis. He's head of the Institute of Theology, the Ecology Department of Orthodox Academy of Crete. He will speak on the ethical duty of sustainability, good practices by the Orthodox Academy of Crete. Antoni, the floor is yours.
Your Eminence, Fathers, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Nikos Asproulis and Theodota Natsiou for their kind invitation and their chance to present the work that we are doing here at the Orthodox Academy of Crete. I hope that you can see my presentation. Okay. So, our academy was established in 1968, and our work is devoted to the cultivation of the spirit of dialogue between Orthodoxy and other confessions and religions, but also between faith, science, and culture. The Academy organizes and hosts international, national, and local conferences. We develop educational programs, and we are an official research center. During our 53 years of service, over 2,600 conferences and seminars have taken place in our facilities. 53% of them are international, 47 of them were local. We had the honor to host the Holy and Great Council. It was 2016 here at the Academy, and they have a special emphasis on the issues regarding the environment. The roots of the ecological crisis are spiritual and ethical. This is one of the major messages that came out of our Holy and Great Synod. Also, His All Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew, he constantly points out the importance for respecting the environment. Unusual fluctuations in temperature, the pollution, and many other catastrophic actions ought to be an obvious alarm for something to be done with the human behavior. Based on all these messages, our academy decided to establish a new department back in 1991, the Institute of Theology and Ecology, as an active response to the Ecumenical Patriarch's call for addressing ecological issues and protecting the divine creation. Our institute has a critical role in attracting innovative programs and work in cooperation with universities, research institutes all over the world. A characteristic case was the visit of Stephen Hawking, the famous physician, who have come in our academy back in September 1998. And all his messages during all his life, he pointed out that I will pay to send climate change deniers to Venus. And also, climate change is one of the great dangers that we face, and it's the one that we can prevent. Based on all these messages and our theological background and also the data that we have from the scientists, we have run a number of projects. The first one has to do with the photovoltaic, the renewable energy sources. The United Nations report concludes that fossil fuels are a threat to civilization. And also new reports are coming every day, but also at the same time we see in our villages, in our cities, the effect of the climate crisis in our lives, in our everyday lives. This is the reason why we decided to use the roofs of 2 of our buildings in order to install photovoltaics, in order to reduce our CO2 emissions. We designed this facility and we were able to materialize it in 2017. Actually, it was the first net metering case in the middle village on Crete. So from that time, students, scientists, researchers have come to our academy, and we were able to discuss with them all these cases that have to do with how to make this energy transition, how we're going to change our philosophy of life, and take part actively in this new revolution that's taking part. From this graph, it's clear to see that the energy that is produced from the photovoltaics is of great importance, not only during the summer months, but also during the winter. The annual production of our green energy is over 75 megawatt hours. Over 40 tons of CO2 are saved every year. And up to 80% of the academy's daytime energy are covered nowadays by the sun. This is a characteristic bill in order to see it more practically. In May this year, 2021, we were able to put our bill back to zero. So we did not have, at least for the energy cost, to pay anything at the energy supplier. And this is a very clear message what we can do and have a direct environmental but also economic benefit. The Academy of Bad Boll, who is in Germany, has decided to dedicate a special article at their journal in order to present the work that we are doing here in our academy. One more project has to do with the energy democracy and social engagement through energy communities. We were able to go back to our history, and it was in 1945 that we had the establishment of the first energy cooperative in Crete, and it was actually in Kisanos. This is a very characteristic photo. In the middle of the photo, we can see the priest who has blessed and put together all the people. And all of you can imagine how difficult the circumstances was after the Second World War, but still the people decided under the help of the church to work all together and make true and materialize the first energy cooperative. Nowadays, more than 2,000 energy cooperatives are all over Europe, and they're still spreading. The whole idea, and this is the idea that we cultivate here at the Academy, is to engage the people, to make the people part of these ideas and become stakeholders in order for all the people to have the direct benefit, both the environmental, but also the economic one. This is the way that we could use these tools in order to fight against energy poverty, which is a big question also during every winter, not only in Greece, but I'm afraid in all over Balkans and all over the world. This is two ideas that our Academy has actively supported. The first one has to do with the first energy autonomous parish, a system with both a photovoltaic and battery. It was at the Church of Saint Nikiforos the Leper, and we had His All Holiness, who had blessed the opening of this church back in October 2018. It's a very characteristic example that we have here at the western of Crete. And then it was September 2019 that our Academy decided to donate these two photovoltaic panels at the St. George's Church, which is still also in Kissamos, in order to start cultivating these ideas about moving to renewable energy sources and reducing the amount of pollutants at the atmosphere. I have to mention at this point that this is not an easy task. The parish is not, the people are not ready for this kind of changes. So a lot of work is needed in order to cultivate this idea and convince the people of the importance of these projects. It's a changing of philosophy of life. And as Theodota has mentioned that is open speak, we have to touch the hearts of the people in order to be able to make praxis all these ideas about having a sustainable future. The third project that I'm going to present has to do with sustainable and almost zero energy consumption on buildings. It's a project that we have started with the Technical University of Crete and was implemented in our Academy, but we have seen that there are many cases around the world. This is a church in the Netherlands. Also, there are churches in Canada, all over the world. This is a school at the United Kingdom. And the point is that, especially this case, it's very clear that if they use renewable energy sources, photovoltaics in this specific case, in England, why we shouldn't use it? We have much more sunlight here at Greece, here at the Balkans, than for instance, the Northern Europe. So it's a ring that we should we have to hear it and start think differently and activate this kind of modern technologies in our everyday lives and our buildings. Even there are solutions that we can use these red colored panels on top of our red tiles and be in harmony with the architecture of our buildings, and especially with our monasteries, for example. And this is one more case of a solar street lighting, and it uses this photovoltaic and it has very good autonomy, but at the same time, very good efficiency. The fourth case that I'm going to present has to do with the international conference that we organize here at the Academy, is the Ecological Theology and Environmental Ethics series of conferences we have started back in 2008, and we published the papers of these conferences in books. You can see the first conference, but it was in 2008, and then it was 2011, 13, 15, 17, and actually on December 14th, in a few weeks, we're going to make the online presentation of the most recent book of the EcoThe conference, which has to do with contemporary ecotheology, climate justice, environmentalist leadership in world religion. So it is an ongoing work that we're doing here in our academy. Also, we run a number of conferences, workshops that has to do with renewable energy sources, energy cooperatives, and climate crisis. It was November of 2014 that we have started this kind of international local conferences in order to engage the local people, the local citizens, but also to see real life examples that are successful and they work in other places of the world, in other places of Europe. Also, we discussed about the forest, energy autonomous islands and communities, energy cooperatives, how we can start, how we can establish such cases with policymakers, stakeholders, scientists from all over Greece, and the people that were actually actively, in many cases, participating, they were interested to learn. During the coronavirus pandemic, we were able to organize online webinars together with members of the parliament, professors, the WWF, Theodota Nancy was also there, and local policy mayors. Also international online seminars with Father John Chrysavies, who is the advisor of the Ecumenical Patriarch in issues that have to do with the environment, Sven Giegold, who is the member of the European Parliament and chair of the European Christian Convention, the president of the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives, and again, of course, with Theodota Nanciu. Another pilot project, which is very important for islands like ours, is the utilization of burning residues for energy production and enrichment of soil. The start was this conference back in 2019, where we pointed out that it was unacceptable to burn these residues at the open field. And we were able to materialize this project. It was some months ago, April 2021, in cooperation with municipality of Platanias. Also here at the Academy, we have the Museum of Crete Herbs, the work that it has started in the mid-60s by Professor Jacques Zafran. Now in our collection, we have over 5,500 Cretan herbs. Most of them are endemic. And of course, we run projects, school programs that have to do with our collections, and we put special emphasis on plants of the Bible and their pharmaceutical and medical impact that they have in our lives. Health and religion, also a very important subject here in our academy. European Commission emphasizes that 1 in 8 deaths is linked to environmental pollution. So the big question is how we bring together religion and health. And this is what we are doing through our project, a European project, which is called Training on Religion as a Lever Towards Mental and Physical Health. We run this project together with our partners from Belgium, Poland, Bulgaria, and Turkey. And this is very important to see on the multi-point of view and see how we can work together on these crucial issues. Also, we have publications of papers to increase our awareness of our public. It was 2017 that we have written this article about our responsibility as Christians for the climate change. And also we're discussing and we have fruitful discussions regarding European Green Deal, but also this publication has to do about offsetting carbon emissions from energy use. What is more, there are educational programs. This is a very successful one that we have. We have small pupils that they come in our academy and they produce with very simple methods that you can see from this slide.
Αντώνη, αν μου επιτρέψεις λίγο πρέπει να συντομεύσεις γιατί έχει περάσει ο χρόνος.
Αντώνη, please just be a bit more succinct because we're running out of time.
Are making with very simple ways their own paper so they can understand the basic steps of sustainability and recycling. If you make it very practical, then it works. This is very, very important. And also we have a model of a small photovoltaic helicopter, which also works for them as an introduction to renewable energy sources. Also projects that have to do with recycling, tree planting, composting. And also just a few words about the gastronomy. We have published this book, Cooking at the Academy. Gastronomy has a very important impact on the environment. And here at the Academy, we have our own gardens and we cultivate our own herbs, fruits, vegetables, and we offer them directly in our guests and conference participants. as a way also, as a step, as a crucial step to sustainability and how to reduce the emissions that we produce through our way of our food habits. And the next step, together with gastronomy, is also the physical exercise. So we promote walks at the nature. Since 1996, we have students from Germany who are preparing these natural stone pathways, and is inspired by biblical motifs, holy symbols of our Christian traditions. And they have done a very, very beautiful work, pebble by pebble, and you can see some photos, some characteristic photos of this path. Of course, pupils are coming, and we have very nice, very interesting discussions with them. Last but not least is the dialogue on new technologies. We had some scientists even from China here in the academy, and we're discussing how we can use the drones in order to achieve sustainable agriculture. Also, sustainable transport is a new issue that we have started to discuss here in our academy. Cars with photovoltaics, electric cars is a new challenge. As a conclusion, the Orthodox theology teaches the respect to the natural environment, and we have now the duty to take some real-life actions. Our academy will fully contribute to the organization of the Orthodox Green Parish network for a just and sustainable future for everyone, and this must be the message for COP26 too. How to use the energy democracy, the energy transition, and solidarity to fight against the energy poverty. And let me finish with some words from His All Holiness just 2 days ago, which is also put a very important parameter in our discussion. In order to secure a sustainable future, ecology must be incorporated into economic theory. Unless we reduce global economic inequality, we cannot reduce our negative impact on the planet and its people. Society cannot prosper when the environment suffers. We need an economic system that has a social orientation and ecological consciousness. And with these words by His All Holiness, I would like to thank you for your attention, and thank you again for inviting me to speak in this very important conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Antonis. And now we move directly, because of the time limit, to the next, last speaker of this Greek session, who is Sister Theochariti from the Holy Patriarchate Stravopegic Monastery of Chrysopigi, Chania, Crete. Again, a second case from Chania, Crete, who will speak on Orthodox monasticism and sustainability, Holy Patriarchal Stravopegic Monastery of Chrysopigi. Sister Theochariti.
Your Eminence, Reverend Fathers, Honorable Professors, dear brothers, sisters in Christ. First, we would like to thank the organizers of this conference, Theodota Nantsu and Mr. Rasproulis, for their kind invitation to participate in this important initiative, which emphasizes the role of the Orthodox Church in facing the climate crisis. From the point of view of Orthodox theology, the misuse of creation is a consequence of contemporary people's refusal to comprehend their spiritual purpose and responsibility, and a result of their unwillingness to place themselves and their environment in direct reliance on God, the Creator. The lived experience of Orthodox Church and its monastic tradition is an ascetic and Eucharistic use of the material world, and that is what it proposes in the face of the current climate crisis. With the ascetic, that is, the reasonable and moderate use of things, the integrity of creation is preserved, and man offers doxology and thanksgiving, which is due to the Creator. In Orthodox monasticism, the ascetic and Eucharistic ethos forms the very basis for all actions and activities of daily life. The gospel call to ascetic perfection guides a monk or a nun along a path of prayer and love, leading him or her to reconciliation with the whole created world. In this way, monasticism becomes a dynamic witness and a tangible example of prudent and balanced handling of things and the use of the world that is sustainable and salvific. In accord with the spirit of Orthodox theology and Orthodox monastic tradition, our convent, the Holy Monastery of Chrysopigi in Chania, Crete, has for the past 45 years been putting into action a wide-ranging program for the protection of the environment. The environmental action of the monastery, enriched through prayer, asceticism, and traditional crafts in the life of the community, aims to reveal the sacredness of the world and of human life. The monastery is dedicated to the Mother of God of the life-giving spring, and this name, life-giving spring, expresses the spirit of sustainability in its most essential sense, meaning a source of life that continually renews itself, or rather, one that never runs dry. With regard to the protection of the environment, the activity of our monastery corresponds with the initiatives of the Ecumenical Patriarchate and the vision of His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew, known as the Green Patriarch. The monastery of Chrysopigi comprises two large monastic areas. The first area is of about 25 acres. It surrounds the restored historic monastery of Chrysopigi, dating from the 16th century, and is situated on the south edge of the city. On the initiative of the monastery, it has been acknowledged and classified as a Class A preservation zone. Thus, the natural surroundings of the old monastery have been protected and now constitute a precious lung for the city of Chania. The second monastic center of the monastery is a cave area surrounding Saint Kyriaki and Metamorphosis. Saint Kyriaki is an old monastic dependency of Chrysopigi, which you can see here in the foreground at the base of the mountains. Next to it is the monastery's Environmental Education Center, which will be mentioned later. Visible further up the mountain is a new monastic complex of the monastery, Metamorphosis. To the right from it, you can just make out a small whitish structure, and that is a stone-built church soon to be completed, which is dedicated to Saint Porphyrios of Kafsokalivia. The monastic cave area is a woodland of about 150 acres, with many natural caves and rich biodiversity. It is situated about 7 miles outside of the city of Chania. On all the cultivated parts of the monastery's land, a great variety of fruit trees and vegetables is grown. We use only organic farming methods, organic farming being the most sustainable and also the traditional mode of land cultivation. When we had just started organic farming, which was now 35 years ago, it was still a novel idea and generally unknown in Greece. It was then that the contemporary saint of our church, Saint Porphyrios, who was a spiritual guide of our sisterhood, as well as of many other monastic communities in Greece and abroad, was encouraging us and explained scientifically the benefits of organic farming, both to the environment and to the human health, always stressing the spiritual dimension of such choice. The organic olive oil of Chrysopigi, which is produced in larger quantities, is placed on the market with appropriate packaging and labels, which inform and educate the consumer about organic farming, its vital importance for health, as well as its spiritual significance. The monastic cave area, our second monastic center just mentioned, is a thickly wooded land, and the trees here are predominantly olive, carob, laurel, fig, and other fruit trees, as well as local species of oak and pistachia shrubs. Now, many of the plants of the area, and there is a significant variety of them studied by specialists, are endemic and protected species, and some are known for their rare medicinal properties. The other characteristic feature of this area is its many natural caves, some of which are turned into little chapels and can be accessed via specially laid stone footpaths. Biodiversity preservation of this monastic area is a question that concerns both its environmental value and its sanctity. This is why our community devotes great effort to protect it. With the prohibition of hunting, this monastic and natural habitat became a refuge for birds, while preventing unauthorized goat and sheep grazing allowed for the regeneration of the flora. In this area, the goal was to keep structured and unstructured spaces in full balance. The small dependency of St. Kyriaki, dating from the 17th century, was restored by our community in the years from 1992 to 1996. Here also, on the rocky prominence further up the hill, the new Ecological of the monastery, dedicated to the transfiguration of our Lord, Metamorphosis, has been erected. Designed to be in complete harmony with the surrounding landscape, these new monastic buildings have an exceptionally low ecological footprint, as they were built exclusively with stones from the site's excavation, according to both the traditional building techniques and the principles of bioclimatic architecture with renewable energy sources units. New trees that are being planted here are watered with the outflow from a small organic waste treatment unit installed at the monastery. This same cave area is where the botanical garden of aromatic and medicinal plants was created. This open-air botanical garden includes over 100 local plant and herb species, all of which are marked with a name label containing a QR code, which a visitor can use to obtain more information about the particular plant or herb. The Sisterhood of Chrysopigi also organizes various environmental education activities for school and university students, camp leaders, and other groups of young people, activities which aim at increasing their environmental awareness. The educational programs and activities are based at the monastery's Environmental Education Center, and hundreds of young people participate in them. The center is housed in a restored stone building near St. Kyriaki and was inaugurated by His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew in 2012. Young people and children who visit the Environmental Education Center using info kiosks and through other interactive activities can learn about the protection of the environment and its relation to the tradition of the Orthodox Church. But what is most important...
Αδελφοί Θεοχαρίτη, να διακόψω λίγο πιο αργά για τη μετάφραση. Ευχαριστώ.
Συγχωρέστε μου. But what is most important is that besides obtaining theoretical knowledge, these young people can experience the sacredness of creation. They walk the stone paths and come to cave chapels for the divine liturgy. They drink from natural springs of water. They plant trees. They explore the botanical garden and discover the natural wealth of their own place. They learn about unique properties of various trees, herbs, and flowers, or they voluntarily work preparing compost, harvesting fruits or olives, and so on. The effort of raising environmental awareness and familiarization with ecological practices is also addressed to monastics, young female farmers, and many other people from Greece and abroad who visit our monastery. Moreover, young novices who come from distant parts of the world, from Korea, Colombia, Uganda, Madagascar, and elsewhere, are taught and instructed in all environmental and sustainability practices. They come here to learn the Orthodox monastic life and later establishing new monastic communities in their countries. They spread this experience of spiritual renewal to the local people there. In these critical times for our planet, the Orthodox Church, with its Eucharistic theology and rich ascetic tradition, can awaken people's conscience and offer criteria, both spiritual and practical, for the use of the world that is sustainable and salvific. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Sister Theochristi for her presentation. Now is the time for our first brief break. We will get back at 12:20 sharp. So you can stay online, or which is something that I suggest, but you can also have a break with coffee. We are now back to continue our program. The first speaker of this session, which is dedicated to the Balkans, is Kalmar Zvezdan, who is coordinator of a program of climate change of the Center for Ecology and Sustainable Development in Serbia. The title of his presentation is The Eucharistic Nature of Societal Change Necessary to Tackle Climate Change. Kalmar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am very humbled to be present and to have any opportunity to speak in this conference. I am especially very much surprised by the level and by the number of very positive initiatives I have learned about today in Orthodox Church in Greek. So I'm very happy to learn this, and believe me, I will be the messenger and I will try to communicate these positive examples also here in Serbia, but not only Serbia. When I say Serbia, I think on the territories where the Serbian Orthodox Church is existing. My presentation is, me personally, I'm activist. So I am working in the arena of climate change, and I'm fighting. I am used to say that, and I will speak naturally as I am speaking anyhow. So I'm fighting together with my colleagues for the green transition of Serbian, and not only Serbian, but also South Eastern European, or let's call them Balkan energy systems to green systems. I'm not involved in some of the concrete projects of the sort or type we learned today. However, I have organized personally and together with my organization and with number of networks I am involved in. We organized a number of events, we organized a number of educations, but moreover, we are involved in day-to-day legal fights against negative projects. Unfortunately, we are living in such a world where the sinful nature of people, especially decision makers, I don't want to sound judgmental, but the sinful nature of our decision makers is making such negative decisions in last decades. I'm not very old, but I have about 50 years. I'm saying that because I'm working in fighting for green change of energy system for more than 20 years, practically whole of my professional life. So I feel this not only as the personal mission, but also as my religious obligation to speak about climate change and the necessity to change our attitudes, to change our system. And I really feel very humbled, especially after the presentation from Monastery today and also from the Theological faculty. I don't feel that, unfortunately, in territories where the Serbian Orthodox Church exists, these kind of numerous positive projects could be presented. My organization, in cooperation with Theodota, already have learned about these examples, and we already started numbers of activities trying to communicate also to Serbian Orthodox Church necessity of that church should become active agent in that sense of word, active agent in sense of showing by its own example how the way of life and way of existence should change if we want to tackle climate change. My presentation or short paper is based on the paper I've already published thanks to the WWF in English, and it was related to the obligation of believers in sense of how to help reduce climate change. My questions and my being in status of being under question constantly is actually even after this publication even bigger. I am learning every day how negative impacts of climate change are growing. But moreover, I need to say that unfortunately in Serbia and in whole Balkan, practically the negative practices are continuing, and the problem of climate change is increasing. We don't see any real positive movements from side of Serbian authorities in direction of really showing how and when Serbian energy system could change. That is why my first question in this today presentation is that climate change is existing, it's happening. So since climate changes, so we need to change too. Or do we actually want to change? Can we change at all? Do we want to hold change in us to achieve change necessary to stop running away climate change? We are living in a very poor society, and I would say that this, when we say poor, and when I compare ascetic approach to life, which was presented in this fantastic presentation from Monastery, I immediately ask about egoism of citizens who are unfortunately don't understand that we are not living actually in poor conditions, that we have sufficient for our needs. However, big hope for the change cannot happen if we don't understand that we are unfortunately living egoistic life. I present in this short document I wrote down to this conference, I present the objective and subjective side of the problem of climate change. Most of countries where the people are living under some imaginary level of standard. So people really believe that they are having right to some higher standard. In these societies, when I speak about these societies, I'm not speaking abstract. I really think about Serbia, about society which I am part of. So people are actually living in this false self-reflection, thinking that they are very poor. They then don't have sufficient for their material needs. And practically, we constantly have this egoism, and we constantly have this consumeristic push to have more for our invented needs. When I say invented, we are living in society which is directly a consequence of communism. And this communism, one of the main characteristics of communism was inventing new needs, inventing new satisfactions, inventing constantly new products. And in this sense, this society is very similar to the liberal societies of the, let's say, I'm calling them always global north or global west. So the industrial, techno-scientific industrial society, which is basing or funding or having foundation of its structures in the scientific and technological advancement. So my main question in this, let's say, materialistic part of my presentation, I always have this unfortunate feeling that when I'm speaking about climate change, I'm somehow desperately falling back into materialism. Everyone who speaks about climate change first sees these exogenous phenomena or these material phenomena which are being measured, which are having indications in deforestation, in climate change, in rise of temperature, and etc. So unfortunately, we constantly try to change our spiritual spiritual reason for climate change, for the pollution, for egoism, for consumerism. We're constantly trying to change it with more technological advancement, with more technological inventions. And unfortunately, I would say, as I was studying history of energy inventions or technological inventions in last 250 years, I would say that always we had these big promises of solution of needs, solution of poverty, solution of inequality, and especially in last few decades, constant promise of solution of pollution and solution of climate change through more and more technological advancement. Unfortunately, as we see, and I also presented that in my article for the book WWF presented or published, I'm showing that especially you're all witnessing in last few days, again, we have this kind of Paradise or Pandora papers. Again, we see decision makers. Again, we see the high-ranked businessmen, high-ranked politicians, high-ranked artisans, high-ranked ministers, especially Serbia was affected by this, manipulating, avoiding to pay taxes, and by that, directly undermining any positive effort. So financial side of any positive effort to tackle climate change, to tackle material needs of most of population who is affected by climate change, unfortunately, are being undermined by systemic tax evasion, by systemic and criminal avoidance to pay dues to the state. Why is this important? Because without normal and healthy fiscal system, it is not possible to organize in sustainable way, financially, sustainably, and also environmental and socially sustainably measures, which will tackle both energy poverty, which is the main problem for me as the consumer, for me as the father, for me as the believer. Main thing is to tackle first injustice, social injustice, and to tackle energy poverty. But while tackling the energy poverty, we need to tackle also the less obvious issue, and that's climate change, which is very complex. We all know that it is enormously complex. We all know that it's not a thing which is possible to solve with one silver bullet, technological silver bullet. I am, for example, right now involved in one campaign against lithium production in Serbia. You know that lithium is one of the preconditions right now technologically, one of the preconditions for a regulation of energy systems, especially small solar systems like you presented in your beautiful and fantastic presentations. But without sustainably sourced batteries for that system, we will have more pollution, we will have more greediness for resources from the global West. When I say global West, I don't want again to be judgmental. However, this is reality. So we need to have also this in our mind, that a number of communities in the world are actually strongly opposing digging of lithium, producing of lithium batteries, and are much more toward some other mineral solutions like natrium-based batteries. It's not so important, but I just want to say that even within the mostly considered as positive energy solutions, we need to be very much aware that greediness can also overshadow these solutions. I want to go one step further and to very briefly to say that egoism, we see that egoism as spiritual phenomenon, which is directly consequence of the falling of humans in sin. And from there, we have vanitism. I'm calling it vanitism. English is not my nature tongue, but I like to play with these words. So directly quoting from Bible, I can say that vanity or love for nothing is directly the origin of the egoism. And this limitless hunger for profits we are witnessing every day, and this notorious economy for few, so economy which is directly serving needs and inventions of richest people in world, are taking over decision-making powers. So poverty, pollution, concentration of power, captured state, you know that notion of state serving only rich, states writing laws and implementing laws just in interest of rich, are unfortunately ever existing and everywhere existing forms of nihilisms. And when I say nihilism, I don't want to get into philosophical discussion about the origin and the sense of this word, but I am just using syntagma vanitism as a love for nothing, or a love for empty profits as the main source, driving force behind this main reason for pollution, for desertification, for climate change. I want also to point out one, for me, very important, personally and enormously, increasingly every day more and more important issue, and that is false notion of career, or false notion of increasing my personal powers and, you know, education, constant strive for more and more diplomas, postponing giving birth to children. Practically this careerism is leading to destruction of family. My country, Serbia, where the Orthodox Church is existing, or where God established Serbian Orthodox Church, is more and more witnessing increase in abortion, increasing number of families which are being divorced. So we are actually going in more and more in different forms of societal sickness. I know that the time is up and I need to stop somewhere. A fourth part of my presentation is actually, so what is the solution? And I was thinking to give whole 1.5 page, a little bit too fastly to write, to read through that, but I will say just one thing from the end, and I am directly under impression of what was said from Monastery, and I will say same thing. So we can imagine solution for the climate change, pollution, desertification, and all the other evils. We can change it only through the change from above. So we can change only if we consider whole creation, whole country. So I'm speaking for Serbia, but you can just say your country, if we consider them as monasteries. Our first Archbishop, Saint Sava, he considered Serbia as, he wanted to have Serbia as big monastery. And believe me, I more and more am tending and prone to understand that actually blessing of whole creation, or whole creation, is not possible to save if we are not living Eucharistical way of life. Eucharistical in sense, you know better than me. I'm not even able to give very brief and to give very very good definition, but I am just giving my personal experience. I'm giving my personal insight, how I'm grasping this. So only through Eucharistical way of consolation, of creation with the human needs. So human needs should be in line with the ascetic ideal, without this empty consumerism and without this empty greediness. Only in this way And my personal life, I see that absolutely. I don't even say I believe this. I say that I know this, because my life changed in such a way, and I see good fruits of this deep insight from the presentations I was so blessed to listen just a few minutes ago. So forgive me that my presentation was not so much on positive, but if I would reflect one sentence I have in this paper, I was writing down that do we feel desperate because of climate change, or do we want at all to change this feeling of desperation? Maybe this feeling of desperation, this fear of God, is actually the best way how to start, where we finally learn and understand that without the deep, profound God's intervention in our life, we cannot change this, obviously, in its essence, of wrongly designed design systems. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that my message was clear and understandable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kalmar, for this inspiring presentation. Let's turn now to the next speaker, who is Professor Konstantin Nutsev. I think that there is a problem with his connection, so I will move directly to the two representatives from Romania, and then we'll get back to him. The first is Dr. Ionut Biuta, who is a researcher George Sinkai Institute for Social Sciences and Humanities at the Romanian Academy. And he will speak on unorthodox ecology, theological and pastoral responses to the ecological challenge in the contemporary Romanian Orthodoxy. So, Dr. Biuta, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, and I'm very happy to be here and to meet friends, old friends and new friends, hopefully. And my presentation today will be very short. I don't have a PowerPoint or any images, and I hope that my survey will be as comprehensive as possible. So basically, the Romanian Orthodox Church underwent several changes and permutations in response to the incoming challenges of modernity, especially after the fall of the communist regime in 1989. My presentation today speaks about one of these challenges, that of the ecological crisis. Often depicted through ideological lenses, in the official Orthodox public discourse, the ecological problem seems to be a minor concern for Orthodox theologians in Dumitru Stăniloae's home country. The challenges of the increasing secularization, stern nationalism stemming from its fascist past, competitional approach to other denominations for state funding and public legitimacy are among the prime targets of the Orthodox theologians and clergymen today. My paper argues that the ecological problem remains a theological mystery for most Orthodox communities, except in a few isolated pastoral instances, individual parishes mostly, and the regional Orthodox youth student organizations. Addressed at the theological level through the fathers' of the church voices regarding their cosmological views, or the filter of Father Dumitru Stăniloae's impressive work on the church fathers, the contemporary reflection and originality still hangs in the air, because no critical assessment of the cosmological views of the church fathers and Stăniloae's theological oeuvres are allowed by the church hierarchy. Most of the innovative and cutting-edge theological opinions come from abroad, from the Romanian immigration. The first thing argued is that the ecological crisis remains a poorly envisaged problem of modernity for contemporary Romanian theologians. Even when tackling the ecological challenges, most Romanian theologians cannot avoid referencing Stăniloae's commentaries on Maximus the Confessor, the Philocalical Fathers, or Saint Gregory Palamas, rather than hard sciences or studies from the environmental studies. The most important cause for such a setback in the Orthodox theology in Romania is its ancient theological curricula and the reluctance of the Romanian theologians to embrace new theoretical and methodological approaches or exit their comfort zones. It took more than 30 years for the theological system to introduce apologetics, bioethics, and philosophy. Even these breaths of fresh air cannot compete with the obsolete accent that still falls on the teaching of church histories, liturgics, moral theology, and dogmatics. Most of these disciplines are taught according to 19th century.
May I interrupt you? Just speak more slowly, okay?
Okay. 19th century literature and methodological approaches. At the theological level, there are also some encouraging signs regarding the environmental problems. New theological analysis about the Christian conceptions of cosmos and the utter destruction through the constant abuse of the environment comes from the Romanian Orthodox theologians living and carrying their priestly mission in exile. Two examples stand out among the plethora of Orthodox priests and theologians scattered around the globe. The first, Father Radu Bordeanu, he teaches at Duquesne University, explored in his monograph on Stăniloae's open ecumenicity the potential present in Stăniloae's work as a starting point for developing a compelling argument for a vivid discussion about the environmental challenge, especially in what concerns Orthodox views on cosmology. Furthermore, he also expanded on the patristic views of Saint Maximus the Confessor, considering the Byzantine saint as the springboard for a theology of ecological crisis in a patristic and orthodox fashion. Father Jean Boboc from Paris published in 2016 one of the most comprehensive accounts of Orthodox anthropology that synthesizes the Church Fathers' vision about creation, contemporary theological endeavors in the ecumenical field of studies regarding the status of man and creation, but also ideas coming from medicine and social sciences. Father Boboc's contribution should be appraised and appropriated by the contemporary discussion about the ecological crisis, especially regarding the impact of the environmental changes on the human person. The increasing number of PhD dissertations that deal with the ecological crisis underway or already defended in the departments of Orthodox theology in Romania should be mentioned as another encouraging sign of normalcy. In the last 10 years, 12 dissertations have focused on the topics related to environmental issues, the precarity of the supervision, the poor quality of the libraries and relevant databases, and the fact that most of the doctoral candidates lack in knowing what they compensate in spirit, hinder the initiation of a general reflection at all levels in the Church about environmental issues. Moreover, the inability of filling the dots between theology/metaphysics and anthropology brings the discussion almost to a halt. Moving forward to the social level, someone may notice that in what concerns the Romanian Orthodox Church, there is no systematized or fully organized top-down approach or pastoral strategy meant to address the issues of the ecological crisis. The approach of the environmental issues in the Romanian Orthodox Church remains in its infancy. The innuendos in the pastoral letters and internal workshops organized by various departments of Orthodox theology proved to be insufficient in discussing one of the most significant crises our world has ever faced. Nevertheless, in 2002, Patriarch Theoctist called upon the Orthodox Church members to find solutions to the problem of the ecological disaster. The same appeal of preserving God's creation, falling in deaf ears no less, came from Patriarch Daniel on several occasions in 2007, 2013, and 2020. One of the most successful environmental initiatives must be considered the 2013 Orthodox Church firm public resistance to disastrous environmental potential for the habitat of the mining project of Roșia Montană, pushed forward by the Romanian state and the foreign investors from Gold Corporation. Coalescing with the Romanian Academy, the Roman Catholic and the Greek Catholic churches, the Holy Synod in Bucharest unmasked the imminent danger of gold mining by cyanide purification for the environment. They constantly raise awareness of the natural patrimony of the Apuseni Mountains that needed preservation. The hierarchs of the Orthodox Church and the priests from the affected area underlined the consequences of this ecological disaster through pastoral debates with the priests, conferences, and meetings with the members of the communities, and a sustained press campaign raising awareness about the historical legacy of the area and the peril of poisoning its water reserves permanently. Backed also by several NGOs in media outlets, the local churches and the academy determined the government to back down from putting a stop to the mining project. It was perceived in the media and the public sphere as a massive victory for the incipient environmental movement in Romania. Everyone publicly acknowledged the vital contribution of the Orthodox Church. Furthermore, the metropolitan sees of Iași and Craiova used virtual communication channels such as blogs or their digitized newspapers to disseminate ecological messages from the ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew in the Orthodox communities in 2018. They also delivered some notions of catechism about God, man, and the responsible behavior towards the surrounding nature, coming only to make up for the silence of the local bishops about such troubling issues. There are also some encouraging initiatives stemming from individual parishes and priests, but also from regional students' organizations, such as the Association of the Romanian Orthodox Students, ASCOR, to raise ecological awareness by cleaning the environment of plastic wastes. Priests in the parishes of Săcădat in 2020, Răchițele in 2019, Nepos in 2014-2018, Târgu Ocna in 2014, Ipotești 2019, Bucharest, and so on and so forth, together with ecological NGOs and various religious associations engaged in cleaning villages and cemeteries of plastic and toxic waste, organized lectures delivered by ecologist activists, broadcasted movies, and distributed flyers among the young members of the communities. Furthermore, the student organizations such as those in Bucharest, Alba Iulia, and Iași organized conferences about the ecological crisis for the young generation, for that to become aware of the environmental issue. And now, just to summarize a bit my discussion, there is still a long way to go for normalcy in the Romanian Orthodox Church. Nevertheless, the first signs do appear at the present stage. A more involved episcopacy in the whole discussion and a real link of Orthodox theology with science will bring forth a fruitful synthesis both for Romanian society and for the Church. Science should be used and not be demonized. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you very much, for your presentation. And now let's take the second Romanian presentation by Father Cesar Marksteiner Urguneanu, if I pronounce correctly his name, who is a priest of the Romanian Orthodox Church in Austria and a PhD candidate of the University of Austria. The topic that he will present is ecology in the Orthodox Romanian Church, an open challenge.
Hello, and thank you very much for the invitation. My aim today is to present the institutional reception and contribution of the Romanian Orthodox Church concerning the issue of ecology. The ecclesial reception of the ecological challenge, perhaps the biggest challenge of our time, is very limited and is in desperate need of development. At least this is the result of my research for today's presentation, as I couldn't find almost any official approach concerning ecology from the Romanian Orthodox Church. Although the Romanian Orthodox Church is of course part of the wider Orthodox Church, there cannot be any comparison, for example, with the activity of the Ecumenical Patriarchate with respect to ecology. However, this stance is hard to comprehend since the Romanian Orthodox Church took part in the Pan-Orthodox Council of Crete and signed its documents, which include crucial points regarding an ecological involvement of the Orthodox churches. See the message of the Holy and Great Council, paragraph 8, the encyclical of the Holy and Great Council, paragraph 14, and the mission of the Orthodox Church in today's world, paragraph 10. The reception of the conciliar text regarding ecology does not appear to have happened so far. Why is this the case? This could be the...
Father Cesar, if I may, just speak more slow, please.
Thank you. Okay. Why is this the case? This could be the topic of another academic paper. I will briefly mention only two of the possible reasons for this lack of initiative. Firstly, because the reflection on social and political topics in the Romanian Orthodox Church is still in an underdeveloped stage. There aren't more than a handful of specialists in social ethics who could address such questions from the complex perspective of both economics and social political sciences. Secondly, this is due to the influence of anti-science and pro-conspiracy movements, which in the context of COVID-19 pandemic seems to have grown even stronger. On top of the second set of factors, there are several groups which deny the importance of the ecological question itself. Indeed, many of the clergy of the Orthodox Church, as well as many Romanian Orthodox scholars, seems to view such ecological approaches as nothing more but a waste of time. Although the Romanian Orthodox Church doesn't address institutionally the issue of ecology, there are a few Romanian theologians dealing with the topic both in their home country and in diaspora. Predominantly, their analyses come from the perspective of a systematic theology. In the following reflection, I will briefly present only three such examples. First of all, Dumitru Stăniloae, as one of the most remarkable exponents of the neo-patristic synthesis school of thought, whose theological legacy, at least in Romania, is hugely important and undisputed to this day, delivers to posterity a worldview grounded in patristic wisdom. His cosmology is based on the teaching of Maximus the Confessor, for whom the universe possesses its own rationality, the logoi, resulted from the permeation of creation by the Logos. These divine principles determine the structure of the cosmos and its ultimate purpose, which is an eschatological one. Stăniloae doesn't only repeat the Logoi teaching, however, but he develops its feature. See his teaching on plasticized principles. Thus, the Word is the medium for the action of the Holy Spirit, which continuously and dynamically forms the cosmos and consecrates it. In summary, it can be said that Stăniloae offered already in the 20th century an extremely fertile ground to enable the development of an eco-theology. Further, I will very briefly discuss two contributions of Romanian scholars currently available only in Romanian regarding ecology. Doru Costache from Sydney College of Divinity and Daniel Munteanu from the University of Bamberg. Academic papers published in English and German by Ioan Moga from the University of Vienna and Dorin Oancea from the University of Sibiu will be considered later in the final version of my contribution. In his works, Doru Costache analyzes the spiritual roots of the ecological crisis and emphasizes the cosmological dimension of holiness. To that end, he adopts and adapts the vision of Maximus the Confessor and Dumitru Staniloae. The main idea is that the sense experience always involves the cosmos in its entirety. In pre-modern times, humankind and the cosmos were an inseparable unity, which he believes was intensified by the experience of holiness. The human being as microcosm embraces, unifies, and transforms the macrocosm in its ascension to God. Sin and virtue have consequences not only for the self, but for the creation as well. In this light, holiness represents an ecological virtue that awaits to be rediscovered, one able to secure a renewed relationship between humankind and God's creation. Daniel Munteanu attempts to resume the dogmatic criteria of an Orthodox eco-theology. He outlines the principal ideas of a theology of environment based on patristic witness. These criteria are creatio originalis, the word as instrument of God, the incarnation of God that gives infinite dignity to the creation, the pneumatological cosmology according to which the Holy Spirit works inside of the created cosmos, the world as sacrament in the divine liturgy, the new creation that implies the transformation of the old one, not its annihilation, ecological anthropology and ecological spirituality, which preserves and respects the environment, and finally the doxological ecology. Beyond the anachronism present sometime in his analysis, a synthesis of the core point of patristic wisdom concerning ecology make it worth reading. In summary, it can be said, therefore, that the Romanian Orthodox Church, within its institutional framework, has failed to address the issue of ecology, nor has it developed a theology of the environment. A reason for this lack of theological reflection regarding ecology is for sure the absence of a social ethics from Romanian academic education. Hopefully, the new generation of Romanian theologians will succeed in changing this situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Cesar. And now we'll get back to Professor Nusev from the University of Sofia, who will present the environmental education, official positions, and good practices related to the climate crisis in the context of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. Professor Nusev, the floor is yours.
Hello, do you hear me? Because I have some problems.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. Now I try to share my presentation.
Just speak a little louder for the interpreters, please.
Okay. Okay, I try to share my my presentation, but there is some problems.
You need to open firstly the file and then share it with us.
Yes, I open, but I try to share. Okay, I try to present only by microphone. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this interesting conference. I'd like to present some points related to the environmental education.
Would you like our technician to present it? We will have your presentation. Okay.
Yes. If you.
Yes, we will do it.
Okay. If you can help for this presentation. Yes. First of all, the issue of climate change and ecological crisis nowadays are present in theological research in Bulgaria, also in religious education and in some church official positions of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. In the last few decades, especially in relation to the clean air in big cities, to the protection of forests, water, and in the relations to the need for Christian and ecological education for children and young people in modern European society, and also especially in the Bulgarian post-communist society, when our church tried to re-establish religious education in the public school with the connection with contemporary ecological education. Currently now in actual political dimensions, the issues of climate change and environmental problems in Bulgarian society are related to the new European policy of decarbonization and the need to reform the country's energy system and eliminate some old industrial infrastructures which pollute the air in big cities and have a negative impact on the environment. In the theological education and religious education, ecological topics and environmental issues we can find in new textbooks for the religious education in the school. The Bulgarian Orthodox Church considers these issues of ecology in deep connection with the religious education and moral education of children and young people. And nowadays we have a new textbooks for religious education, which contain this new ecological point of view in the framework of the Orthodox Christian ethics, in the context of the Christian values and ecological awareness of responsibility for creation. In recent years, the Ministry of Education has approved these issues related to Christian ethics and ecological values in the religion curriculum for general education, which are considered through the prism from the point of view of Orthodox Christian moral theology and spiritual teaching of the Church. These are the themes of man's love and responsibility for nature as a God's creation, and the care of children and young people for the purity of water, forests, and air. Such lessons in ecology and ethics are already contained in the curriculum of the textbooks for religion and Christian ethics for the students in 7th and 12th grade of the Bulgarian public school. For the students of theology in our theological faculty of Sofia University, the curricula of Orthodox Christian ethics, foundations of social teaching of the Orthodox Church, and foundations of Christian bioethics also contain topics and questions related to the environmental ethics and the church attitude to contemporary environmental issues. The students in our theological faculty also prepare master's theses on the attitude of the Orthodox Church and Christian ethics to the contemporary problems of ecological ethics and Christian ethical principles of care for the environmental. Some points related to the ecological initiatives undertaken by parishes, dioceses, church-affiliated organizations or institutions. The ecological initiatives of the Orthodox institutions, metropoly, eparchy, parishes, monasteries, and educational institutions are connected with ecological education of the believing Christians, care for the forest and forest territories of the large monasteries, and ecological agricultural farms which are developed on church lands and agricultural lands. For the situation of Bulgaria, this is important in last years that we have a process of restitution of the church property, and one of the tasks for the church and for the clergy is how to organize these territories which are in the mountains, which are related to the ecological standards of the contemporary European common policy in the field of ecology. The care for these territories and agricultural lands in recent years is predominantly related to the process of this restitution of property of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church by the state. And this happens, for example, in the Rila Monastery, one of the biggest or maybe one of the more important Orthodox monastery in Bulgaria, which is situated in the big mountain, Rila mountain. Also, these monasteries try to develop educational programs for young people related to the protection of the nature in the framework of the Orthodox religious education. With regard of the care for the environment and environmental initiatives by the church, some initiatives can be mentioned which are related to the protection of the clear air, water, and striving to reduce harmful emissions into the atmosphere through the use of clean energy, solar panels and wind turbines, which are being built in some monasteries and parishes. This is one of the direction for the development of ecological projects in Bulgaria. Many Orthodox parishes and monasteries and some metropolitans of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church in recent years have supported the national civil campaign, which is the biggest ecological campaign in Bulgaria, on the title Let's Clean Bulgaria in One Day. This is the more important ecological event in Bulgaria every year. Many people together participate in this big campaign, which is held through civic non-government organizations and the media. And this campaign aims to involve all Bulgarians in cleaning the forest, rivers, and seaside beaches of Bulgaria. Ecological issues in the official documents of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church are present in connection with issues of religious education, social issues, and issues of contemporary bioethics. For example, on the occasion of discussing the legislation on GMO, genetically modified organism, in the Bulgarian Agriculture, in the National Assembly, the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, in the person of the Plovdiv Diocese and Plovdiv Metropolitan, Philippopolis, has a large, which this eparchy is owner of the large agricultural lands on church in Bulgaria as a church lands. And in the connection of this problem, Bulgarian Metropolitan of Plovdiv expressed concern about the admission of such biotechnological agricultural activities, and there is an official decision to ban the use of these GMO crops on agricultural land which are located on church grounds throughout the Diocese of Philippopolis. This is maybe one of the more important official church encyclica or church official decision related to the protection of the environment. The ecological crisis in the modern world is a crisis of modern civilization and all humanity. It affects the lives of the most developed countries and continents, as European countries, which are changing their policy to the related to these challenges, but also poor countries and continents are affected from ecological crisis too. The biblical worldview and the Christian understanding of man's responsibility for creation, as we know, are related to understanding the role of the first humans and their blessed by God and gracious condition in the Garden of Eden before the fall, before the distance of people from God and the harmony of man with nature. This harmony, which was disturbed by the fall. There is no hostility and fear for food as a lack of material goods from nature and a treat to wife. That's why in Orthodox theology, as we know, ecological framework of values is not something separate from the theology, from the spiritual life, and from the liturgical life of church, but in the context of the Orthodox Christian ethos, we consider these ecological topics as values which are deep related to our Orthodox Christian ethics and our Orthodox Christian spirituality and liturgical life of the church. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for technical problems with my participation and presentation.
Thank you, Professor Nusev, for giving us an overview of what is happening in Bulgaria. But now we will have our second 15 minutes break. We will get back at 1:35 sharp. So let's take our second coffee. We have the last part of our online conference. We will start with Ukraine at the Reverend Professor Volodymyr Vakin, who is a priest of the Autocephalous Orthodox Church in Ukraine, a director of the Volyn Orthodox Theological Academy. He will speak on ecological initiatives of the Volyn Orthodox Theological Academy of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. Father Volodymyr, the floor is yours.
And dear college, I have the honor to deliver my presentation on the topic ecological initiatives of the Volyn Orthodox Theological Academy of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. Let's start. Today, when the destructive treatment of nature has reached its shameful level, the most acute problem facing humanity is the environment. The Volyn Orthodox Theological Academy, abbreviated WOTA, of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine has always advocated the careful use of natural resources. Caring for the environment is also a concern for future generations because we have to pass to them clean rivers and lakes, and pure air, technologicals for the economical use of resources and waste recycling. Taking all this into account, it should be said that our academy is actively working in this field. In 2016, the Crete Orthodox Council declared every year on September to make prayer for the protection of the natural environment in all local churches. The Orthodox Church of Ukraine, immediately after its formation, joined to this common pan-Orthodox prayer. Such a prayer was the beginning of constant theological reflection and participation of the clergy and the faithful of our church in the preservation of the environment and various environmental initiatives together with all people of goodwill. The Orthodox Church of Ukraine, together with the state, is actively working in solve many environmental problems. Thus, this year, a dialogue was launched between the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine and the All-Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religion Organization to united efforts to raise people environmental awareness. Within the framework of cooperation, a number of educational activities were outlined, among them the following: rejection of plastic flowers on funeral days because they are not subject of recycling and their burning pollutes the air. Alternative to the use of plastic bags, reusable bags, which will reduce pollution of the environment and water. Burning of dry leaves and grass, which leads to fire in ecosystems. In order of the successful implement the outlined steps, a memorandum of cooperation was signed between the Ministry of the Ministry of State and the All-Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religion Organization, which provides for joint efforts in the development of environmental education and training of citizens in respect for nature. According to this document, the state undertakes the implement spiritual and moral principles in the formation of implementation of environmental policy and the basic on the proposal of the All-Ukrainian Council of Church and Religion Organization. On the basis of this signed memorandum, a public council for cooperation with the All-Ukrainian Council of Church and Religion Organization under the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine was established. Our church is represented in this council by Archpriest Georgy Kovalenko. The first meeting of this council was held on October 7, 2021. Participants discussed environmental protection in the area of climate change, waste management, sustainable water management, creation of new forest and biodiversity conservations. During the meeting, a further work plan was drawn up and it was agreed to establish section on key environment policies. The Volyn Orthodox Theological Academy gave a positive impetus to understanding the environmental problems, as the Halki Summit said. Initiated by Ecumenical Patriarchate Bartholomew, it was held on June 2019 in Istanbul, Constantinople. At this summit, the rector of the water, in his report, emphasized that the restoration of human harmony with the world is possible only after the regeneration of the correct connection of man with God. The implementation of such a plan is possible through proper education and training. A special place should be occupied by theological education institutions through the formation of the correct worldview of future priests. Today, the water skillful copes with this mission. Thus, the Academic Council of the Water has a lively discussion on whether to introduce a special course in ecology in the curriculum, which would reveal to students current global environmental problems and the need to solve them in the context of interaction of environmental and religious consequences, or to introduce special topic in ecology in existing disciplines, exegetics, hermeneutics of the Holy Spirit, dogmatic theology, liturgy, asceticism, missiology, pastoral service, etc. It was decided to support the last proposal as the most appreciated and most correct one, which will give students a deeper understanding of environmental knowledge, reveal the responsibility of man to God for the use of nature, will contribute to the formation of life and value orientations of students. Environment problems arise and ways to solve them are proposed at the annual International Theological Scientific Conference organized by the Volyn Orthodox Theological Academy. In the Volyn region, a large number of environmental measures are carried out by the state authority and private individuals, to which the water is actively involved. Such on April 2015, Lutsk and Volyn Metropolitan Mikhail Zinkevich and other professors of the water consecrated a chapel in honor of the Archangel Mikhail for hunting farm in the village of Zvirev in Kivartsi Dinery. This chapel has become not only a place of prayer for forest workers, but also a reminder of their great mission to protect God's great nature. Professors and students of our academy, together with representatives of the authority and public, have been actively participating in the all-Ukrainian action. The future of the forest is in our hands. For the last few years, this long-term practice has been very fruitful. For example, in the last 5 years, about 50,000 trees have been planted in the forest and hunting farms of Volyn. The activity of our academy in this direction continue because within the framework of the protection of the President of Ukraine Green Country, it is planned to increase the area of plant forest by 1 million hectares in 10 years. On May 29th, water lectures Archpriest Nazar Babi and other clergy, together with Chief physicians, even Sidor, doctors, transplantologists from different countries, people with transplanted organs, members of the national movement of transplantations, government officials, and the public took part in the actions earlier of life. As part of the event, a line for fig trees were planted near the Volyn Regional Clinical Hospital in gratitude to donors. On December 29th, an ecological hour Let the Earth Breathe was held in the Assembly Hall of the Water, where the issue of raising the level of ecological culture and responsibility of each person for their actions in relation to the environmental was discussed. A video film about the problems created by plastics and the culture of its use was shown. The event was organized jointly by the Department of Ecology of Lutsk City Council, the Department of Nature of the Volyn Local Museum, and the Volyn Orthodox Theological Academy. On August 2029, the Eco Farm Amila, the founder and head of which is a parisher of our church and a philanthropist of our academy, released 120 deer and 30 wild pigs into the forest land on the Turan region in Volyn. The event was held to increase the population of animals and spread them in the forest of Volyn. Water students responded to the call of Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew on the preservation of the environment. Thus, on the initiatives of students, our academy introduced separate sorting of garbage, cleaning the local river, annual cleaning the city park, cleaning the forest area, and preparing it, planting young trees, and so on. Every day on the planning, the amount of waste from the polyethylene increased, as well as plastics and other synthetic materials has decomposed over many years. One of the steps of reducing such waste may be the production and promotion of eco products. The water has already begun to gain some experience in this area. In 2021, the Academy began to use branded eco products with the logo of water, which can be used for a long time and easily disposed of it in a natural way. Such ecological products are a reminder of alternative ways of interacting with the environment and the need for the right attitude to the ecosystem and the label with the call not to have a destructive effect of nature. We hope that every year the skill and of events and initiatives of water of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine in the field of environmental protection and solve current environmental issue will only grow and bring God-blessed results. Thanks for all.
Thank you, Father Volodymyr, for your presentation. And now we'll go to the British Islands with Dr. Elizabeth Theokritov, who is Associate Lecturer at the Institute of Orthodox Christian Studies in Cambridge. She will present the topic Green Christian Initiatives in the British Isles, some pointers for the Orthodox. Dear Elizabeth, the floor is yours. We can't hear you. Turn on your microphone. From the menu bar of Zoom platform, on that's okay.
I'm very sorry.
No problem.
Sorry, yeah, I haven't got any audio visuals. I'm afraid you're just going to get a talking head. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's an extremely important conference. Listening to all the contributions, it's even more important than I realized. And this has prompted me to explore some of the valuable work that Christian communities round us in Britain are engaged in, and consider ways in which our Orthodox communities might learn from their example. Because the first thing that I have to say, and this is very sad and very embarrassing, as far as I've been able to discover among the Orthodox here, there is nil interest and practical response to the environmental crisis generally, or the imminent COP26 conference. Of course, there are individual initiatives. Our own parish youth leader is currently taking Caring for the Earth as a theme. But at the level of dioceses, parishes, and clergy, again, generally, there seems to be no interest, no concern to make theological connections or to offer any guidance on how our Orthodox faith might inform our responses, or indeed practices of greening our parishes. As is the case everywhere, monasteries provide a pattern of sustainable and ecologically harmonious living without giving it a green label. I wonder, do people make the connection between the monastic way of living and the sort of green living urged upon us in the name of addressing the climate crisis? My fear is that often probably they don't. It's all too easy for the spiritual, in inverted commas, and the environmental to remain in entirely separate compartments of people's lives. And I think this is particularly true where most of the Orthodox communities are emigres, people who have not been in the country that long. But anyway, this represents a shocking failure of witness and a pastoral failure. It's a really tragic missed opportunity to engage, especially with the youth. There's no adequate excuse for this, but as His Eminence Metropolitan Ignatius said at the beginning, the whole idea of greening the church often seems alien to Orthodox. Environmental concerns come across as, on the one hand, a trendy issue, and even worse, often part of an alternative ideology of environmentalism, which has a whole raft of civic, or even quasi-spiritual rituals and language to match, even the language of saving the earth. You know, you can see why many Orthodox find this off-putting and think it's nothing to do with us. But anyway, you want to hear about positive initiatives and not failures. So I'll talk about things that other Christians are doing, or ecumenical groups in this country, and particularly the ones that we as Orthodox could profitably explore. On the environmental impact of churches as institutions, several denominations have targets for carbon neutrality. The Church of England and the Methodists have both put 2030. This looks at buildings, use of land, investment of funds, and housekeeping, the way we do our daily business as communities. The International Christian Environmental Organization, AROSHA, has an eco-church program, and this provides a sort of checklist, questionnaire, and a wealth of really practical, valuable practical information about ways in which all sorts of activities of, sorry, I've did this wretched thing on the screen. I've lost my text. Activities of the church community and its members affect the natural environment, from insulation and heating of buildings, the food we buy and serve, recycle and reuse, exchange events at churches. Some of these seem designed to fill a void in structured liturgical life, which exists in many Protestant churches, like the idea of a Lenten carbon fast. But on closer consideration, given that we start Lent with readings and hymns about tearing up unjust agreements and giving food to the hungry, Lent could actually be quite a good time to consider not just carbon, but more widely how our everyday decisions affect those less fortunate environmentally and economically. This sort of practical advice presupposes that a church community has some idea why it should be interested. Other churches, Roman Catholics, for instance, in Britain, have an ecological conversion group, which is a group of volunteers. They've produced a sixth form educational syllabus on care for our common home and a parish guide to Pope Francis's Laudato Si. Public statements from church leaders often don't say anything particularly new or memorable. What they do is signal that a subject is a proper concern for the communities represented, and that there's a connection between commitment to our faith and environmental concern. The churches together in Britain and Ireland, that's the Council of Churches, have issued a Glasgow multi-faith declaration, which is available online. The only Orthodox presence there is the very dynamic and charismatic Coptic bishop, Angelos, but he is the very first speaker. And on a less official level, the organization Green Christian, which was founded 40 years ago as Christian Ecology Link, has put together a paper on why faith matters, with reflections from various clergy, theologians, and climate activists, and that includes an Orthodox contribution. It's intended as something that can be sent to policymakers. It doesn't represent the churches formally, but it does give an idea of the sorts of things that Christians care about, and importantly, the sort of policies that they are prepared to support, even at their own inconvenience. Green Christian has also set up a Young Christian Climate Network, which is an important initiative. As it stands, this might be rather Protestant in style, but bear in mind the key role in the Russian immigrant community in early 20th century of student movements and study circles based precisely on those of Student Christian Movement and other Protestant organizations. And indeed, Syndesmos, the World Fellowship of Orthodox Youth Movements, was a fruit of this. In the early 1990s, Syndesmos took a leading role in Orthodox environmental education and publishing, and that niche now remains unfulfilled. We should think seriously about trying to engage Orthodox youth more. Perhaps most striking from an Orthodox point of view are the various initiatives connected with land and place. And we hear a lot of talk today about structural economic changes and technological innovations, but it's a real question how much this will achieve in the long term if we do nothing to preserve or restore, as the case may be, the sense of people's connection with the particular environment in which God has placed us. You know, an environment isn't just a construct of ecological science, it's the place where we live. And I continue to believe that there's a real insight here from the Orthodox tradition, especially the Ascetic tradition. Elder Vasilios of Iveron says somewhere of the ascetic experience, I'm keeping this place and it keeps me. And it's intriguing that there is a recurring theme of Orthodox inspiration in these initiatives concerned with the land in other churches. The Church of England's new lead bishop on environment, Bishop Graham Usher of Norwich, is a trained ecological scientist, an avid beekeeper, and incidentally, one of his important initiatives, I think, in conjunction with the local university, that he has instituted a Bishop's Prize for Ecology to be awarded annually to a student. This is a very good example of connection between the church and ecological science. But he has a recent book, The Way Under Our Feet, which is talking about the spiritual aspects of walking, because he's also a very keen walker, a way of experiencing the natural world. And he says of this book that the book kind of walked itself into being during a 3-month sabbatical as I walked on Mount Athos, in the Troodos Mountains in Cyprus, and in the Judean desert. And along somewhat similar lines, there is the Sacred Land Project. Now, this was initiated some years ago by Martin Palmer, who was also the founder of the Association of Religion and Conservation. And in that capacity, he worked very closely with Patriarchate of Constantinople in the late 80s and 90s. And I believe it was actually he who suggested the idea of a day of prayer for the protection of creation. At least he says it was his idea. The idea of sacred land, however, came to him later as a result of his environmental activities with the Orthodox, when he was in Russia and had a conversation with a priest who explained to him how Moscow was laid out originally according to images in the Book of Revelation, and that this was actually very common across medieval Europe, East and West. But there is a connection between our environment, including our built environment, and our spiritual life, our relation to the Creator. And the aims of the Sacred Land Trust include rediscovering how our forebears saw the landscape, both natural and built, as full of sacred potential, reopening old pilgrimage routes and finding environmentally sensitive ways of managing them, re-establishing ancient shrines and holy wells and using them as a focus for local improvements. Rather similar, again, there's a quiet garden movement. One of the patrons is Metropolitan Kalissos of Dioclea. And this includes at least one with an Orthodox connection next to the Orthodox chapel, where there used to be a monastery in Walsingham, which is England's foremost place of pilgrimage to the Mother of God. I'm not aware of Orthodox, again, institutionally, apart from individuals, explicitly making a connection between pilgrimage, holy places, and broader environmental concerns. But Orthodox in Britain, and not only those of British background, certainly are often in the forefront of rediscovering our many ancient holy places and restoring, if need be, the veneration of the saints associated with them. The idea of pilgrimage, in other words, of holy place, remains very strong. And so perhaps for us Orthodox in this country, this could be a starting point for caring about keeping the place where God has placed us so that it can keep us. And a starting point is something that we desperately need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for your contribution. Now we will watch the video from Father Nicholas Kazaryan, who represents the Archdiocese of America. He's also a professor at St. Cyrill's Orthodox Theological Institute, the director of the Department of Inter-Orthodox, Ecumenical, and Interfaith Relations of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. His talk is on greening the parish, answering to the Green Patriarch's call.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I would like to thank the Volos Academy for inviting me to share some insights into the environmental initiatives here at the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you live, but I'm delighted to be with all of you through video and in spirit. Creation is an icon of the presence of the divine in the world, surrounding us and everywhere. When Jesus was transfigured in front of his disciples on Mount Tabor, their eyes were opened to the glorious reality of his divine nature. In that way, we see through the eyes of our souls and our hearts the miracle of life unfolding before us that becomes a spiritual enlightenment the Church Fathers call Physici Theoria, the contemplation of nature. In January of this year, our department, the Department of Inter-Orthodox Ecumenical and Interfaith Relations of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, hosted a 4-part webinar series on greening the parish with very positive feedback. Thereafter, the department began publishing its how-to video series featuring lessons and practical guides on creation care and sustainability, which began on Earth Day on April 22nd. And today I would like to share a short sample of one of our videos, episode number 4, Learning from Our Parishes at St. Anna Greek Orthodox Church in Roseville, California. And I am going to share my screen and show you a sample of it.
I am Emil Sigoya. I'm a parishioner here at the St. Anna Orthodox Church in Roseville, California. And we are having an apiary here where we are tending several beehives. The reasons we started this hobby is that we have this wonderful place, the church grounds, that is nicely located next to a ravine, the dry creek passing nearby, and that's giving our bees flowers during the warm season. And we love our honey, we love our bee products, and we share it with our parishioners, we share it with the community when we bake. If you are interested in tending bees, would like to overcome the fear of being stung, you want to have a good location where during the warm season there will be flowers, will be wildflowers or various orchards or fruit trees, anything that give lots of flowers throughout the summer, because otherwise being too dry is not really giving the bees a source of food. You want to have some fresh water nearby, and eventually the fitness to lift up a heavy weight like 50-60 pounds without hurting yourself. Otherwise you may want to join with another friend and buddy who can help you out with that. It's still not a big investment, but couple $100 just to get it started, and then the bees are multiplying themselves and you just need to grow your apiary. Also, you want to love nature and honey and everything that comes with sustainability.
Hi, I'm Tim Burkhardt. I'm a parishioner here at St. Anna's. I help take care of the grapevines. The grapevines are important to our community for a few reasons. One is that we make our communion wine from it. And another is it controls erosion on the side of our hill. The interesting fact about the vines we have here is that they were imported from Cyprus. And when they were first imported, we had to bring them to UC Davis so they could be evaluated to make sure that it would be safe to introduce them on the North American continent. So this is the first time that these varieties of grapes have been planted in North America.
And there would be way more to say and to see, and I encourage you to go on our website and follow the very many various episodes that we have. So the episodes continue to be published weekly through the Orthodox Observer, and all the videos are published on the Greening the Parish resource page. Designed for both the parish and home, our Greening the Parish resource page provides material for navigating and working towards greening our churches together on a personal level. For example, We offer a creation care toolkit that includes Sunday school lesson plans, the Greening the Parish webinar series, and manuals to help parishes begin their own creation care activities. Especially featured are the ecological initiatives and activities of His Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew, including the September 1st encyclicals for the Feast of the Indiction and the Day of Prayer for the protection of the natural environment, along with His Holiness's works in global environmental advocacy and action, such as the Halki Summits. Also featured on the web page are youth initiatives, books, and films, along with all diverse resource section on the works of various Christian traditions, organizations, environmentalists, and academics. As we continue to cultivate this green ministry, we hope to establish a Green Parish Certificate program whereby Orthodox congregations and parishes can earn different levels of certification by implementing environmentally friendly measures. Through this program, parishes will be able to fulfill their roles as stewards of creation. Moreover, we hope to expand our position at the United Nations to address the challenges of the climate crisis. We have applied for UN Environment Program accreditation, which will enable us to formally engage with member states, NGOs, and other partners to find solutions to these environmental issues. If successful, the GOA will be the only Greek and only Orthodox organization with this accreditation, will be the only voice to advocate for Orthodox values within the global environmental sphere. Dear colleagues, dear friends, in closing, I would like to share with you a quote from a document that you, I think, all know, recently published with the blessing of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, entitled For the Life of the World Towards a Social Ethos of the Orthodox Church, that encapsulates the essence of the Ecumenical Patriarch's call. I quote, "None of us exist in isolation from the all humanity or from the totality of creation. We are dependent creators, creators ever in communion, hence we are also morally responsible not only for ourselves or for those whom we immediately influence or affect, but for the all of the created order, the whole city of the cosmos, so to speak. In our own time, especially, we must understand that serving our neighbor and preserving the natural environment are intimately and inseparably connected." End of quote. When speaking about creation, there is no contemplation possible without service. As Orthodox Christians, we are not only called to acknowledge the gifts of the natural environment, but also to preserve it in the same way we take care of our church. Creation is a sacred space. If you wouldn't do something in the church, why would you do it outside the church? Let us offer back to God this creation that we received from Him in a gesture of thanksgiving by using this liturgical expression, your own of your own, we offer to you in all and for all. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Father Nicholas. And now our last speaker, who will present a different aspect of the whole discussion, is Dr. Miltiadis Lazoglu. He's head of policy at the Society for the Environment and Cultural Heritage, project manager of Life IP Adapting GR. He will speak on the beliefs, opinions, and knowledge of Greek citizens about the phenomenon of climate change and the need to adapt to the new climate conditions, the case of the region of Thessaly. The floor is yours, Dr. Lazoglu.
Καλησπέρα. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. I would like to thank both WWF Greece and the Volos Academy for Theological Studies. I will be speaking for something different compared to previous speakers. is about a survey for the perceptions, opinions, and knowledge of Greek citizens in relation to climate change, and I will focus on the perceptions and opinions of the residents in the region of Thessaly. I do hope that you can see my screen. The survey took place and it was conducted within the framework of the Adaptive Greece program, one of the most significant Greek programs related to the adaptation to climate change. There are 19 partners, 3 regions, 5 municipalities, and many renowned institutions, national institutions such as the Bank of Greece, the Athens Academy, and also my organization, the Hellenic Society for Environment and Culture, established in 1972. It is an 8-year project with a budget of 14.2 million euros, and its aim is to enhance the implementation of our country's policy for the adaptation to climate change through the update of the national strategy for the adaptation to climate change.
Αν μπορείτε λίγο πιο αργά για το μεταφραστή.
Μάλιστα, μάλιστα. Ωραία. Εδώ βλέπετε το δείγμα που...
Here you can see the sample that participated in our survey. It was an indicative sample, which means that we used the same standards as the demographics of Greece. About 7%, so 808 participants, come from the region of Thessaly. That's the first finding I would like to present to you. The question was about the problems that they feel will be more significant in the future, in the next 20 years for our country. The first problem, without surprise, is the issue of unemployment, followed by climate change. In the third place, we can see the financial crisis. The fourth place is the destruction and pollution of the environment. And if we see which problems rank low, it's the lack of green, education, and taxation. Looking into the reasons for climate change, most participants, 53%, said that climate change is because of human activities, and that's a very important finding. It's something we all think about, but it's a different thing to actually say it out loud. On the other hand, 41% said that climate change is the outcome of physical reasons, natural reasons. 90% of all participants said that scientists do not exaggerate, and what the scientific community says is actually true. Now here you can see a different chart which explores the age groups that feel that climate change and environmental pollution is the biggest problem. So it's easy to see that both in Greece and throughout the world, those that are above 17 years old, so most adults believe that climate change and environmental pollution is very important. Here is another chart in which we try to point out the main reason for climate change according to our participants. So the first answer is that everybody is responsible for climate change, each person and each family. The second answer, most popular answer, is the powerful states. The third answer is private companies. The fourth answer is the state, the government. The fifth answer is municipalities, then specific professional groups, then political parties, the regions, or somebody else. It's very encouraging that most people recognize that each and every one of us is partly responsible for climate change. Another question to the participants was about the significance of a series of problems related to climate change. The first most popular answer is the temperature increase, then the increase of wildfires, followed by the increase of frequency of extreme weather events, then water scarcity, followed by the increase of the level of seas, followed by the reduction or complete disappearance of certain plants and animals, the destruction of certain ecosystems, and the least popular answer was desertification. This is a more complex chart, which we ask them, what have you already done or are you currently doing, you personally, from the environment? So the most popular answer is recycling, followed by the avoidance of waste, then water saving, decreased use of plastics, while one of the least popular answers is the use of renewable energy resources, the use of bicycle instead of cars, and fasting as an effort to reduce meat consumption. That was the least popular answer. We try to find out what happens in each Greek region. We will focus on the national average, which is the first column, and the region of Thessaly. So the biggest problem, according to the participants in the region of Thessaly, is unemployment, followed by climate change, then pollution and destruction of the environment, followed by the financial crisis, then the migratory flows, and the least popular answer was criminality. This is another interesting chart. We tried once again to link the vulnerability of each region to the information and awareness among its residents. So the regions on the right are those more vulnerable and less informed. As we can see, most vulnerable and less aware regions is the Central Greece, Western Macedonia, the Peloponnese. On the other hand, the regions of Attica, Northern Aegean, Central Macedonia, Western Greece, and Thessaly are those which declare to be better aware of environmental problems and less vulnerable to them. And this is a similar chart. Again, on the right, we can see the most vulnerable Greek regions, while those in green say that the climate change has already impacted on their region. So those that state that they have been impacted, less impacted, is Thessaly, Eastern Macedonia, and Thrace, while the opposite applies to Attica, Central Macedonia, Northern Aegean, and Ethos. This is an even more complex chart, which shows how many residents are doing or could possibly undertake some actions. Again, we will focus on the national average and in Thessaly. Those participants from Thessaly said that they are already using, or they are more likely to do recycling or reusing. In the third position, we can see the voting of texts that are for climate change, the use of more environmentally friendly means of transport, the energy upgrade of buildings, while the least popular answers are the traditional fasting to reduce the consumption of red meat and the use of less energy-intensive appliances. Another interesting finding is what is the answer to the question, what you would be most willing to do. The blue or red means that they are already doing this, or they are likely to do it. Orange means that I would like to do it, but it's not convenient, I won't do it. Again, the most popular answer is recycling, followed by reusing. Third answer is the use of public means of transport, followed by traditional fasting. In the fifth place, we can see the use of trains instead of planes, then volunteer actions. Then the next answer is the use of appliances that are less energy intensive, followed by the option of political candidates that have an agenda for climate change, and the least popular answer is veganism. We focus on somebody's likelihood to observe traditional fasting. And we linked these answers to the age groups. Blue answers means that they are already doing it. Red answer means that they are likely to do it. So it's obvious that people over 55 years old are most likely to do this. Nevertheless, even younger people have a quite good percentage of likelihood to observe traditional fasting. Another question was, which of the following collective actions on the state level will you agree to do? Again, the most popular answer is recycling, compost, then renewable resources in public buildings. The third answer is the prohibition of plastics. The fourth answer is elimination of CO2 emissions. The fifth answer is the obligation to introduce bioclimatic architecture. The next answer is the introduction of a new environmental friendly tax policy. And also the least popular answer was the introduction of toll payments in the city centers. Actually, more than 50% said that they would be okay with this. And the last question was, where did you get your information from for climate change? And it was about the age group of 15 to 17 years old. So 60% said that they got their information from school. That's encouraging on the one part, but on the other hand, that means that 40% didn't receive any information from the school. So when we asked them who provided this information to you, most of them said that it was a teacher at school. 95% asked that it was a teacher at school, an active teacher at school. 4% said that they received information from an NGO. That's all on my part. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Lazoglu, for your presentation.
I would like to thank especially the presenters, but also the attendees for joining this online conference of the Volos Academy for Theological Studies. You will be informed by email about the process of the publication of the proceedings, but also of a statement that we would like to issue in anticipation of COP26 on some of the points that have been raised here. So I would like to thank you. I would like to wish you a pleasant rest of the day.